Change is hard, not because you're doing it wrong, but because it asks something of you. Welcome to Change is Hard, a podcast from the Leadership Lab. I'm Audrey Blair, and this is a space for leaders who are learning how to sit with uncertainty, make decisions without rushing, and grow without losing themselves in the process. We'll talk about the moments that stretch you, the conversations you keep avoiding, and the quiet shifts that change everything. No noise, no pressure, just honest conversations about becoming the kind of leader and human you actually want to be. Let's get into it. Hi, welcome. Thank you for being here. It is good to see you. And today, I want to address something. Actually, I'll say this. Today is one of the situations where I'm talking to you, but I'm really talking to me. So we're kind of in this together, and we're going to go through it together because we're going to talk about the idea that you don't have a time problem. What? Are you kidding? That's all we have is time problems, right? I know it probably feels like that. It probably feels like there's too much to do. There's not enough hours in the day. There's so much that's important that I need to be doing. But then somehow nothing is actually moving forward. And here's something I see over and over and over again. It's not a time problem. It's a focus problem. There is a difference and a pretty big distinction. When things feel uncertain and when there's pressure and when there's noise, a lot of leaders don't slow down. They scatter. They're here. They're there. They're everywhere. They're running from this place to that place, to this meeting, to that thing. And you start doing a little bit of everything, responding to emails, sitting in meetings that you're not even sure why you're there. Because while you're in the meeting, you're thinking about something else or you're doing something else, multitasking, particularly if it's on a virtual meeting, calling you out, because you know that sometimes I'll show up, I'll show face, I'll be there, but I'm really not there. You're thinking about the long-term strategy. You're worrying about what's coming next. There's a lot of movement that's happening right now. There's reorgs that are going on. There's new leadership that's taking place. And so considering and thinking about what might be coming down the pipe. And then at the same time, avoiding the one thing that actually matters in this moment. So now your attention is split in 10 different directions. So of course it feels like you don't have time. But the truth is, you're not out of time, you're out of clarity. I was talking to a client recently, and he said something like, I just need to get my head wrapped around all of this. What do I do with it? But really, underneath that question, the real question is, where do I focus? He had a number of things going on. He has a frustrating situation with leadership, particularly with his direct leadership. There's pressure coming from above. There are long-term strategic issues. And then there is the immediate day-to-day responsibilities that are somehow getting tossed about. And everything feels urgent. And he was trying to get a hold of it all at once. And this is the moment where most people will either freeze or they will spin out. But here's the shift that I want you to consider. And instead of thinking about one thing, I want you to think about something else. Instead of thinking about what's the full plan, what's everything, how do I fix everything, or what's the long-term strategy? I have to understand the long-term strategy before I make a first step, or I have to figure out where we're going before the first step. I want you to think about, what can I control right now? Because when everything feels unstable, you don't need a bigger plan. You need a narrow lens. You need to close that lens a little bit more, particularly during this time. And yes, and I know I talk about setting an anchor around long-term vision. It is important, but it may not be today's priority. I'm going to say that again. Your long-term vision isn't your today work. Your long-term vision is out there so that you can work backwards to figure out what you need to do today. And when you confuse the two, you create overwhelm. It gets overwhelming. So you have a long-term vision where you're trying to go, but then you have to work backwards and figure out, what is it that I need to do today in order to get there? Because when you're trying to build the future, you're trying to fix perception problems, you're trying to manage people, you're trying to respond to all the noise that's going on, and you're trying to execute all at the same time. That is not leadership. It's just chaos on your calendar. There's lots of things that you're doing, but it feels like nothing is moving forward. This is one of those seasons in leadership where the goal is not optimization, it's stabilization. There are seasons for leadership, and sometimes you have just that one or two more things that get thrown on your plate where you're like, okay, I am officially over the edge now. I officially have one too many things that I'm trying to focus on, concentrate on, one too many things that I need to get done. But what you need in those moments is stabilization. You don't need to solve everything. You need to create stability, and you need to protect your energy. Because what's also happening is now you're tired, and now you're prone to getting sick, and now you're prone to not sleeping well. Now you're prone to not taking care of yourself. Now you don't even have the energy or in the right frame of mind to deal with what needs to be taken care of. So what you need to do is just focus on the one thing that matters, moving that forward. Because in these moments, survival and stability have to come first, then growth. And here's where it might get a little bit uncomfortable, because most of the time you already know what the priority is. You're just not doing it. Why is that? Well, you've got to figure it out. Maybe it's uncomfortable. Maybe it's unclear. Maybe the path forward is really unclear for you. Maybe there's high stakes, or maybe it's tied to how you're being evaluated. So instead, you stay busy. You work on everything except what actually is going to move the needle. And just reminded me, I recently watched this movie on, I think it was Apple Plus. It was called The Lost Bus, and I didn't really know the story. And there is a point in the movie, and it's been out for a while, so I apologize if I don't know that I'm necessarily going to give anything away here, but it is about one of the deadliest fires in California. And there was a school bus with some students on it that was lost. And there's one point in the movie where the bus driver made some choices, and they ended up in this space where there was no one around, and they were going to try and wait the fire out. Well, what happens is they get surrounded by the fire. So now they're surrounded by the fire. It's dark, it's smoky, and one of the kids was like, "Is it nighttime?" It was in the middle of the day. And the driver had to make a decision. He had to decide, if we're going to survive, we can't stay here. We're going to have to drive through it. We're going to have to go through the fire. And as I said, it's dark, it's smoky, can barely breathe, the bus is hot, and he could only see a few feet ahead of him. So if he picked his eyes up to look ahead, too far ahead, he would have been lost. He would have gone off the edge of a cliff somewhere. He could only focus on what was right in front of him and take the bus in that direction. And then eventually, the skies parted, and they got through it, and then everything was super, super clear. So sometimes we want to wait, and we go, oh, it needs to become clear to me first what the next step is before I take the next step. No, it's that the reframe is, you don't get clarity first. You get clarity after you take a focused action. Focus creates momentum. Momentum creates clarity, not the other way around. We want to wait till the skies part, and we know exactly where we're going and exactly what we need to do and exactly what the right outcome is before you move forward. It doesn't happen. It's the opposite. You want to start moving forward, then the clarity will happen. Things will become clear in those moments. So we have to do some of those first steps. And then guess what happens, actually? Things become less uncomfortable. Let me say this a different way. Things become more comfortable because now you're in action. You're moving forward. So if you're feeling particularly scattered right now, I know there's a lot that's going on. Here's where to start. You pick one priority, not 3, not 5, just one, and you figure out what that priority is. Do not go to someone else asking them what the priority is. You know what you have in front of you. What's the priority? I'm working with one leader, and it's funny. He's so busy. Anytime I talk to anyone about him, they're like, oh my gosh, he's so busy. And he's one of these people who's scattered here and there and everywhere. And he's doing so much. And at the same time, it takes weeks to get an email reply for something that is could be relatively small, but something that's quite important. So what is the one thing? Not 3 things, not 5 things. What's the one thing? What can actually move something forward this week? The second thing is you want to separate now from later. What's immediate right now this week, and then what's future. If it's future, park it, put it on the side. Your brain keeps trying to solve everything all at once, and it doesn't need to. That's a trap. It is what keeps you busy. I did an episode a while just recently that talks about how busyness is a form of self-soothing. You don't want to get into just the busy work. You want to start moving things forward. That's why it feels like I'm out of time, because you also recognize that nothing is going ahead. And the question for the day is, what can I control right now? Not the organization, not the perception, other people's perception, not the long-term outcome or the results. What is it that is in your control? What is your next move? Because those other things, those are responses. You don't control those things. So put a circle around what is it that you can control? What are the things that you can actively set into place that will influence other things, but now you have some control over it? Because when you also are feeling scattered, you do feel a little bit out of control, and little things become big things. I was doing this week, I want to say this weekend, I had a number of things have come up, and there was I don't want to call it an emergency situation, but one of my clients called and said, hey, we're getting our team together. Can you come out next week and do a workshop? I hadn't had this workshop planned. I was going to do something that I've done before, but once I figured out what their needs were, I was like, no, I've got to come up with something that's a little bit more custom based on where they are right now. But I had all the other things that I had got going on. And so then it became separating out what's going to move the needle for what I need to do right now. So while that workshop is happening next week, last week I had to focus on what I needed to get done last week, because my brain went to future, what I need to do. Let me put all those pieces into place. I don't need all those pieces into place. Now this week, that has become more of the focus. So what you need is less noise. Some of you don't need better planning. You need to create space. You need fewer meetings. If you're going to meetings and you're multitasking, if you're going to meetings wondering why you need to be there, if you're going to meetings just to show face, meaning, well, probably it's good for me to be there, unless there's something critical about it, don't go to that meeting. Do less context switching and create more uninterrupted time for yourself. So giving yourself some of these constraints will then allow you to move forward. So create a 2-hour time block on your calendar. Decide on a single outcome and don't switch. This is so hard. We hear the pings of the email. We hear the chat that comes in, and we get so scattered on, or you sit down for that 2-hour block and you're like, oh no. And I know I do this myself. I go, I'm supposed to be focused on this one thing. And then I start questioning, well, is this the most important thing that I should be focused on right now? Don't question it. Think about it, put it on your calendar. Once you decide what that thing is, focus your time and your energy there. And frankly, you'll probably discover it won't even take you 2 hours to do. Some things will, other things will take you less time. You want to know why? Because now you're more focused, now you're thinking more clearly, and now because you can put your energy there, it moves much faster. The other thing is when you have that 2-hour block, you want to consider what kind of issue are you trying to solve? I did an episode early on, I think it's episode number 3, where I talk about the 5 types of issues, and I explain that not everything is a problem. You might be dealing with a puzzle, yes, a problem, a dilemma, a polarity or paradox or a mystery. And once you understand the kind of issue that you're dealing with, then you can also wrap your brain around, well, how much time and energy do I need to place on this? Okay. So use that time wisely, but focus in on one thing. So if this is hitting for you, go back and listen to the Clear Decision Framework, where you might be stuck in indecision. That's another episode that I did. If everything feels important right now, that's your signal. Not to do more, but to focus on less. Narrow your lens. Pick one thing. Move forward. And let that momentum show you what comes next. It will become clear because you don't need more time. You just need to place your attention somewhere specific. All right? So take something out of this nugget. I hope this was helpful for you. I know it was helpful for me. So at a minimum, I'm going to take some things away from this, and I'm going to go and get some things done right now that needs my attention. And I'm going to see you next time. Hey, if something in this episode resonated, I want you to know you don't have to navigate it alone. This is the work we do inside the Leadership Lab, building capacity, strengthening decision-making, and learning how to lead with intention through change. If you're curious about working together, you'll find more information in the show notes. I'm glad you were here. I'll see you next time.